welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm co-host Nessa.
And I am back from my deep slumber in the middle of January. My name is Drew, the third co-host, the third host, and I brought a friend.
Hello.
My
name is
Ran away
Nikki.
for a month, and then he brought in, he's like, can we keep her?
So we do have a guest today, Mickey. Would you mind introducing yourself, how you got into hockey, and how you identify?
Yeah. I am, like a lifelong hockey fan. My
Amazing.
brother played hockey, and so I spent a lot of weekends at arenas and hotels and just, following him. I never really wanted to play, but I've always loved to watch. And so then as an adult, I kind of took a step back because, I spent so much time. And then all of a sudden, like kind of 2020-ish, I started getting more into hockey again because like when that came back, it's like, okay, I need something to watch. And then my brother's a huge Wild fan. So he and I really connected over that. And I just kept going, like deeper. and then somehow I just kind of ended up, people asked me to write articles about it. And I'm like, okay. And then they're like, maybe you should start a podcast. Okay. So I podcast at here. I'm even wearing my shirt, her Wild Side Hockey Podcast.
Ooh.
That's cute.
I was really excited to get some merch, and it's really comfy cozy. Yeah, and then I go by she, her.
Great. Speaking of merch,
Awesome.
we're trying to get something going. If you could help us out over here.
Oh, for sure.
Listen, we already kind of have an idea. It's just getting it out to like fruition is the whole other
Yeah.
hump. You know a thing or two about running a podcast. Sometimes things just,
Oh yeah.
you just need to take a break.
There's so much to do. I didn't really realize before I started one, and and you're supposed to make clips of it to share, and I'm like, what?
You were literally just talking about that before we had brought you in. We were talking about some post-production stuff. So yeah, we feel you on that. Yeah, so you kind of come from the state of hockey.
Yes.
Like I didn't really get into it until I was in my teens, and that's just kind of around the time when the Sharks came upon the Bay Area. But actually, you talking about getting back into it in 2020, we actually have a friend who helps us out on the post-production side who right around the time of the pandemic, it's like everybody was at home and you're just kind of like, what do I do? And I don't remember the exact way that she came upon it, but it just like something about finding hockey players or something on YouTube and just like went down the rabbit hole. But yeah, like
She's stuck down there now.
But like I kind of had some questions about, I guess, with the PWHL finding its home in Minnesota. And like maybe even before that, like obviously we know that the women's presence in the professional sphere goes back to the PHF to, I believe they had, I may be wrong, they may have had a previous team before that, but just kind of like your thoughts in terms of like when the PHF got bought out and just with the new rise of this Minnesota team.
Yeah. So when the PHF was bought out, first off, I was a little leery, just because I know they were having trouble kind of trying to merge the two together, and there was kind of, just some animosity. But once they started and actually like announced, here's our 6 teams, and having one in Minnesota, which for a while I think they were not going to, which doesn't make any sense. Thankfully, they did end up with one in Minnesota, and it's been really amazing to see how much people, even like outside of the women's hockey sphere, have really been embracing it. I know I read someone who they were at a bar, and there was like a couple almost like frat boy-ish characters behind them, but they were like talking excitedly about like, oh, I can't wait to go see the women's team. And so it's something that's, I think, especially because the Wild have been very open with accepting and giving them locker room space. They use the Excel Center, they use the same training facility. And I think that is kind of helping show that, like, this is another legitimate team. Like, people need to pay attention to it. And, I got to cover the game last week, and it was just such a great vibe. And just so many teams bringing all their girls, high school all the way down to, U8. And they all sit together and they all have their jerseys. And it's just so exciting for them, especially being in the Excel Center, the same place where they go to watch men's hockey. So it's been really fun to see that.
It's
I have to say,
amazing.
I was living a little bit vicariously through you when I seen your post about being in the arena. I was like, yes. I was like, just so stoked for you because I've been my Minnesota is like my refuge destination
Yep.
in the country, and I figured might as well adopt the mini team if that's where I'm gonna be. And so like
Mhm.
even watching that opening game with the XL like center packed, I'm like, man, this is
Amazing.
awesome. Just
Mhm.
the overwhelming support. Same thing at like MSG when New York took the ice. Just amazing vibes and growth for the sport. I love it, and the women are so exciting to watch play. I mean, like they, it's like I know with the men, the aspect of like the NHL is, oh, we'll go out, we'll duke it out, we leave it all on the
Mhm.
ice, and then still be buddies afterward. But that's such a different like vibe. Like the women really do just get out there and they're like, we're gonna slaughter each other, and then we're gonna shake each other's hands at the end of all of it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's been such an exciting league and exciting teams and amazing talent to get into. I mean, this like the women out there just doing sick stuff. I love it.
It's been so fun to watch. And, even my daughter, she doesn't really have an interest in playing or really watching sometimes, but she'll sit with me and watch the women and just be like, oh, cool. And they're allowed to be more physical in this league, which is, I've never understood why they weren't allowed, but they're showing like, look, we can play just as entertaining as everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I've
you're
seen, oh, my cat's screaming again. I seen was it Montreal,
Has
Toronto? I was
opinions
watching.
too.
He always has opinions. He's the most outspoken one in the house. Who is it that laid that big hit? It was like Montreal, Toronto the other day, and it like that girl from Montreal like blew the one girl up in front of the net, and I was like, okay. I was like, listen, if the ladies want to let him hit, why not? Go for it. It's hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Mickey,
Hockey's
in
gonna
your
be physical.
opinion,
Right?
yeah. In your opinion, what do you think is contributing to the success in the PWHL as opposed to the PHF?
I do think that at least here in Minnesota, it is having that tie with the Wild. For some reason, that just didn't exist before. I don't know why, because I know everyone was kind of urging them to, make more of a connection between the two teams. But for whatever reason, they have been like open arms accepting, which I love, because that has been something that, they have the PWHL team on their Instagram page, and they're sharing, on the stories, and they're sharing on Twitter, and they're, they've talked about like, oh, we gave them training room space and locker room space, and we want to grow the game. So I think in Minnesota, that's what's been happening here. And, they picked a bunch of hockey strong hubs where if they can really get these 6 teams going, they're going to expand. So I think, having people start with these ones and, seeing how well and how skilled these teams are and how physical they are, again, it is basically like watching the NHL, So once people can see that, I think they're just going to keep drawing more and more fans.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see.
I do have to say, like, I chose Mini as my team, and I love those deep purple jerseys, but I was really, like, on the fence about the color that New York went with, that Statue of Liberty green, but man, when I watch New York and those, like, Statue of Liberty green, those look so good on the ice.
They are
Like,
so good.
They look so good.
Something about teal.
Right. I can't wait for the final branding and the final names and everything for these teams to come in.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really creative and out of the box, and like just really sort of elevate what they've already established, even just out of the gate. I think it's going to bring in just so much more attention and people that are excited to get behind these teams. And hopefully, I mean, like, to be honest, what I would love to see is a PWHL that had a full 32 teams. Give
Mhm.
me the gamut, you know? And
Yeah.
That is the league that needs to expand, not the NHL.
Yes, yes.
Please stop adding more teams to the NHL.
Give me a
I
San
heard-
Jose
God,
women's
We're
team.
good.
I heard Salt Lake City was in the market. Well, I got
Oh
an
my
idea
God,
to sell them.
stop. Yeah, I've kind of seen in like the women's hockey like Twitter space and you know that sort of community that like when you mentioned the success kind of feeling connected to how teams within the NHL are kind of using their platform to raise awareness and all that stuff. And I've seen how there was pushback of like wanting to have the men's side of it used in this fashion. And like I get it, like, but it's also you can't deny that you can benefit very greatly from it. And that's just like a general thing that I've observed. I don't really know the intricate reasons behind it, but I do kind of understand like it's you kind of want to stand on your own 2 feet and get to that success on your own without this need to like lean on men and all this stuff. But especially in an area like Minnesota, or if we can use Boston also as an example, it's like there's just such a drive and passion for this specific sport that like it's really great to see that it's almost it also wouldn't make any sense to me if the Wild weren't coming in and trying to uplift, you know, their siblings on, you know, the other side of the ice and whatever. So like I'm with Drew. I support Minnie. I also support New York though. New York came in initially for me because of Abby Rock. Like she's my favorite from the national team. I love that Minnesota has Kendall Coyne because that just makes sense. And then back when they had the PHF, I kind of chose Minnesota out of just proximity because we're here out in California, and I'm like, it just seems like it makes sense for me to do that. And like generally speaking, I supported all the teams, and then also the Whitecaps had a really cool logo. So
Yeah, they did.
that was my reasoning behind that.
Everyone has been really bummed to lose that. So they have really got to come up with something good for the next one. And I've heard some of the players talk on another podcast where they kind of like the name Purple Rain, REIGN, like Queens. But, you know, because the purple is partially from Prince, you know, it's supposed to be kind of like a callback to that.
Yeah.
You know, so if they kind of went with the rain and like they're the queens. So I would love that. Yes.
Make it happen.
Guys, I need to take a quick pause because my cat just jumped out of the front window. So, I had like a minute and a half. He just went full Rambo out of my window. I heard something like bustling, and now he's at the front door screaming because he's never been outside. So he's like,
Oh
"Let
my
me back
God.
in."
Go
It's like,
save
you
him.
chose
This was
not what
a
I
bad
wanted.
decision on my part. Oh my God. I saw a meme the other day. It was like outdoor cats versus indoor cats. And like the outdoor cat is like basically it's like roughed and toughed for the day. And it's like has this long journey of being outside. And then the indoor cat is on the sofa and then on the floor. And it's like, I'm here. And now I'm here. So Drew's cat is experiencing what it's like to be an outdoor cat, and he's like, "No,
Already
I'm
not
an
for me.
indoor
I am
cat. I
done.
don't know what to do."
It's like I have a little cockapoo, and he always he thinks he would be like this really tough outdoor dog, and it's like you would never survive outside of the yard. You just would not.
Dude, I have a new neighbor. It's got like a 10-pound fluff of a dog. But I've already told this story to Nessa where anytime I walk by the door, he, I swear to God, slams himself against the front door and sounds about like 5 times bigger than what he actually is. And just like,
Yeah.
this dog needs to just get some anti-anxiety meds or seek anger
CBD.
management, because
Yeah.
you're having like severe Napoleon complex right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like the moment this door opens, you'll probably just be nibbling at my ankles and just like, look at me, I'm so bad.
Yeah, that's my
Oh
dog,
my.
except like people will come inside. He'll bark at anybody outside, like family. He will recognize them and still bark at them. And they come inside and instantly he's like, oh, hey, like wag my tail, pet me, pet me. It's like, so what were you doing?
Putting up a front and protecting the
back.
house.
I sat down and I got panicked for a second because I was like, oh, did I actually close the window, or like, is this going to be a repeat? But he's fine. He's contained. He was sitting at the front door like, I don't know what I've done. I'm like, yeah, well, way to go, bud.
Now what have we learned?
Right.
Wouldn't survive in the
Yeah,
wild.
we were just sharing stories about our own pets and indoor versus outdoors and silly little creatures.
Like, sorry about that. I
Um,
was not expecting him to go full rainbow out of the window. I heard it gunk gunk, and I'm like,
where's this lead to?
right.
Do we have any more thoughts about the PWHL, or do we kind of want to move on? Nope, nope, nope.
We're all
All
just
right,
like,
so-
we're on the hype train.
Yeah. Yep. No convincing here. We're
sure.
there.
Yep.
So I guess let's start out by just kind of, I mean, it seems self-explanatory. You're from Minnesota. It just seems by proximity you should be rooting for the Wild. But if you want to kind of give us like your own version of how you got into hockey, you'd mentioned because of your brother, but
Mhm.
anything else you want to kind of elaborate on your love for the Wild?
Well, it's kind of funny because my parents are actually really big U of M Golden Gopher hockey fans. So we kind of have 2 teams in the family. But as the Wild goes, like I said, my brother is really into it. He's actually a season ticket member. He does like a half season package, and he is very nice enough to bring me to most of the games with him. And this is actually his jersey collection back here. So you can see that he's like big into hockey. But for the Wild, I got back into it, like I said, like 2020. And the big thing for me was that's when Kirill Kaprizov came. And there was so much hype for him everywhere, you know, like in the newspaper, they had big stories about Russian fans here in Minneapolis watching him in Russia, like just waiting for him to come. And so that was kind of the whole like, okay, when's he going to get here? How's he going to play? And then, you know, he played a handful of games and then they gave him like a giant contract. And everyone is like, well, is he, you know, you had Drew Doughty was one who was like, you know, that much money, like he's played 5 games. What do you mean? He's going to be a total, you know, he's going to be a bust. And so it was all this hype that got me into it. But what made me stay is I keep saying that like the Wild have the best vibes. They are just such a like family. And there was actually one of my friends on Twitter who drew a family tree. And it's funny because it makes sense. Like if you follow the Wild, you look at this family tree and you're like, well, yeah, because Marcus Foligno is Mama Moose. And then you've got Jared Spurgeon as the dad, but like he's out. So there's also stepdad Marc-Andre Fleury, who's helping take care of all the babies. And it's like, it's ridiculous. But at the same time, for me, that I like that part of the hockey more than I like stats, or, you know, I would rather dive into their relationships and kind of, you know, the silliness of it all. Because you can enjoy watching the game, but like it for different reasons. You know, because I can still sit, my brother and I can still sit and talk about the on ice stuff. And I know what I'm talking about, and I know the rules, and I know, you know, that kind of stuff. But I can also be silly and make, you know, all these, I always call them my unhinged articles about the Wild.
Okay, speaking of silly, I did see that you retweeted something on Twitter the other day. Oh, sorry, X. No, Twitter.
Yeah.
We don't acknowledge X on this podcast.
This is the only thing I will dead name. Um, it's a photo. I can't tell what player it is because I'm sorry, I don't know a lot of Wild players.
Yeah, that's okay.
Normal sized player talking to someone, looks like they're in an interview, and there's just a bunch of photoshopped pictures of the other
tiny
players.
little
Yes,
players.
they're tiny, and they're everywhere. I
Well,
don't understand. but
So
it's-
it all started because they post these pictures between like every intermission showing who's being interviewed on TV and who's being interviewed for the radio. And for some reason, and this was kind of a thing even before these pictures started, was that the radio guys always are sitting in a tiny chair. Like the chair that's there is always tiny, even for the littlest players. And so it just started. My friend that made it, she just started like every time there was a new one, she would just Photoshop all the old ones into it. And so it just keeps getting better and better as the season goes on. I look forward to it every game.
Mickey's repost and retweets and coverage of the Wild have slowly roped me into like forming this soft spot for this team. And it goes back to Mickey, what you were saying is like yeah, the on ice is anybody can get into what's happening on the ice, but the culture around the team and the fan base, I mean, like first of all, the Wild fans, you guys might be the most nicest group, like always seemingly positive group of people.
Yeah.
And the culture around the team, the fan base, I mean, I know it's the state of hockey, but it's like it's all good vibes. Like I know you guys have had quite the season with the injured reserve list.
Yeah.
But it's not even like with if that would have been like Canucks fans or like any other team, we would have been like it's doom and gloom. But the Wild fans, like, it's fine. It's fine. Vibes. We're vibing. It's hockey. We're good.
I mean, it is. We do have fans that are always on the doom and gloom, but that's kind of just the general Minnesota sports fan, because that's like our sports teams. All of them are just generally the best they do is they will like get to playoffs and then just disappoint us in all sports. And so, but the Wild do have like this large contingent of like, nope, like we're ride or die. We are on the Gus bus. Like we're going to see it through. They're going to get better. Even when half the AHL team is here and half of the ECHL team is on the AHL, and the ECHL team is like just signing anybody they can to fill their roster, we're still here with them.
As the pipeline movement happens just down in Iowa, they're like, on defense, you have 6 Party City mannequins and a traffic cone.
That's the point. It's like, anyone just throw a jersey on and come down if you can skate. Like, we just need people on the ice.
You in section 114, you look like you fit the bill. Come on down.
There was one post where it was like, yeah, and we're going to take the usher from section whatever. I was like, no, take it from my section. He's so nice. I love him.
Emergency backup. Skaters, not even goalies.
Yeah. E-bus.
I mean, everyone knows how to skate in Minnesota, right?
That's pretty true. Yeah.
Everyone brings it to the game with them in the hopes that they'll get called up.
I got my
Like winning the
sweatshirt
lottery.
face hanging off.
Maybe when you go down to like the help reception desk or whatever, they've got pretty much like you're at ice rink and all like the
Like
skates,
the bowling
mental
shoes,
skates are behind them. What size do you need? Hop on out there, kid.
And just stick. Are you righty or lefty? Just
Just get a bunch of straight blades and you're good.
You just get a bag full of like like put together, like build a hockey player.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I always tell people though too that if you want to see a game for your team in a different arena, come to Minnesota, because you might get jeered, you might get chirped, but there's not really danger. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to get beat up. They're going to be accepting and everyone's going to be nice. And, and our rink has amazing in-game experiences. I mean, I cry sometimes at the beginning because the hype video is just so like,
I can't even lie. Like when the Iceman just had Lizard King weekend a couple weeks ago, and they
Mhm.
brought all of the original branding and like in arena stuff from the '90s. I was
Yeah.
sitting there during like the highlight clips, and I'm like crying. I'm like, oh my god, I remember that. I was 5 years old, and I remember that day.
Hockey makes me cry in a good way. So
um, I do want to ask about some of the movements that were made in the last couple of years between, well, to start off with the Wild and the Sharks. So we acquired
Mhm.
Kaapo Kakkonen in 2 seasons ago. Yeah, and in
Yes. Yep.
exchange, you guys got a 5th-round draft pick and Jacob Middleton. So
We
first
love
off, I want
Middleton.
to.
Oh, I'm so
So
glad.
that was my my
Mhm.
first half of the
Mhm.
question.
He
How are
was a
you
fan
liking him?
favorite
Because
here.
for sure.
Here too.
And I love the series that he's got going with like the facial products or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
With Duke Cannon.
Um,
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how Middleton has been received over there. And then for Sharks fans, kind of what was the journey to arriving at we're done with Kakkonen?
Yeah, I mean that trade deadline was one of the craziest ones that I remember because it seems so like, wait, you're sending our backup goalie. Who are you bringing in? Like, what are you doing? And I always liked Kakkonen. I mean, he's endearing. He came up through the system. I always remember he was at the Winter Classic as the backup when it was here in Minnesota, and I just remember him talking about how everyone else got a heated bench, but his stool was not heated, and he was so cold. I was like, he probably didn't say anything. You know, he was probably just like, oh boy.
He's just happy to be
Um,
here.
My
Yeah.
tush is freezing.
And I'm glad to hear. I was just reading that he's doing pretty well, you know, this year. And although it looks like he might be a trade piece again, is what I'm reading.
Yeah, it's
Which-
because we suck. It's not his fault.
Well, so do we. So, but having Middleton, he is just one of those players that we have fallen in love with. His personality is just absolutely the best. And even his personality towards like himself as a player. He the other day was interviewed after his 7th goal that he got, which is a career high. You know, I think before he had like 4 in a good year. And so Kevin Gorg, the interviewer, was like, yeah, you could get to double-digit goals by the end of this year. And he was like, whoa, I'm just, let's just think about number 8. He's like, I don't score goals, But he's also like really embedded himself in Minnesota. He lives in Minneapolis with his wife, and they stay over the summer. She works here in Minneapolis, and people see them around all over. They bike all over. They try all sorts of different restaurants. I mean, he's just really like, he's here. He's a Minnesotan. And this year, his game just keeps getting better. He is playing top pair. He was next to Spurgeon until Spurgeon was injured. Then he's been next to Faber. And now, I mean, he's showing that no matter who he's with, for the most part, he can still skate, 20 minutes a night and do well and score goals, apparently. So
You mentioned Brock Faber, and like what is your deep thoughts on Faber? Because first of all, he is on my fantasy team, and he is doing
He's
heavy
on
work.
both of
Yes.
mine. I
Yes.
love him.
He's doing hard work, man.
Mhm.
And I'm hearing now his name's being mentioned in Calder circles. I love the kid. I love his story, just that he's a Minnesota boy. He wanted to stay in the state. He wanted to grow up and play for his team. Like, I love just like his comeuppance, from the picture of him behind the glass in the Minnesota sweatshirt to doing the same thing. Yeah, like how do you guys really feel about Fabes?
Faber is all of our sons. Like he is just, that's how everyone sees him. And everyone is just rooting him on. I mean, he is so great. And he's always smiling. There was this clip from a game last week where Boldy shot and like totally missed the net or something. And he was like scowling. And then it cuts to Faber, who is laughing and like smiling. And then back to Boldy. And Boldy's like, Yeah, okay. Like Faber, his smile, everyone's just kind of like, you have to smile back with him. So he's great. And I think it's amazing that every time people are like, oh, yeah, well, he did good in those games when he joined last spring, but that's because he was playing, third pair and sheltered minutes. And then, they get to this season. It's like, okay, but he's playing next to Brodeen. That's why he's doing so good. And then Brodeen is injured. And then it's, well, he's running a top power play unit and he never ran one in college.
Bro is getting like 30 minutes time on ice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you guys are obviously like, there's all these other dudes who could, veteran players who, maybe they could have gone with, but the fact that you're giving this kid this much ice time, having him run the top power play unit, having him first, D pair minutes, like I was like, wow, that's really cool for the Wild.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been saying for a while that he should totally be in Calder contention. And everyone, of course, was like, oh, well, Bedard will get it. And I'm like, I know he will because people just look at points. But with Bedard injured now, it's giving everybody hopefully a good look at Faber because he is the complete package. And, he is not at his ceiling. Like, he has literally just stepped into the league and he's going to get better. I don't know how, but he really should be in Calder contention. And Norris contention, honestly.
I wish we had a great defenseman.
The Sharks are like, I just wish I had something nice.
It would be nice.
Let's be nice.
Oh.
I mean, you guys do have something nice, though. Those third jerseys are pretty sick.
Yes. Yeah, okay. But we're going to get to that topic later. We don't want to rush into it.
Listen, I'm just trying to make you go, positive vibes for the Sharks. It's all.
Oh, we're chilling. We're chilling over here. We just sometimes
it's fine.
We've got different kind of vibes over here.
We're sad, but we're cool about it.
But you guys,
we've
got
accepted our
Addison.
sadness.
Yeah.
This is called healing.
I was gonna say you got Addison from us. What do you think of him?
Is he injured right now?
No, but I think we did scratch him one of the games.
Yeah, he was.
But like, you know what? This team is like,
a mess. We're a mess.
Like, I'm sure all of those lines have and the fact that I was talking about this the other day with a friend because yet again we made moves to put people on IR and activated other people, and I was like, when I think about it, is it because we're not going to the playoffs that we're seeing so many more of these like openly willing to move people around, because it's not like we just need to continue the grind to get somewhere. We're not going anywhere, so it's like, why bother to push these guys who we could take out a lineup? There's opportunities for other folks. Like we just brought up one of our prospects on the blue line, and we put some other dude on IR just because he's like, why not? But when we did acquire Addison, and it escapes me right now who we exchanged, was it Adam?
Yes, Adam Raska.
There we go.
Yeah, he was also a fan favorite on the CUDA. I hope you guys like him.
And then I believe
he's been up with the Wild with the big club. Yeah.
Oh.
He was on the fourth line for a while.
Did we also give you guys a draft pick, right?
I believe so. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one, but yes, I think it was Raska and a draft pick.
So similar to how the exchange went with Middleton, like as much as we loved Middleton, it's just that he's around that age where, he can be movable. He's got the experience. It's a great piece to move. And it just makes sense with the direction that the Sharks are right now. And we got a lot of guys in the pipeline, and just with the changes that since we brought in Mike Greer, like a lot of the stuff that's here, you already kind of see the writing on the wall that you're probably going to get moved because he's trying to build this team in his image. So I was fine with that trade because we needed a goaltender. And if, the Wild are like, we're going to move on from him, like it just makes sense for both teams. So it kind of also made sense when we acquired Addison, like we moved Carlson, we moved Burns, like the most like our Marc-Edouard Vlasic is just like well, he's doing a little bit better now, but for the last couple seasons, he's been a ghost of the player that he used to be. He used to be our like top defensive defenseman, and it's like we've got a lot of these younger guys, and we're expecting Mario Ferraro to be like hold down the fort, and he's like, I'm trying to still figure out how to be that person. So it made sense to go out and move a player that was most likely not part of the vision that Greer had and get someone like Addison. And he's been, from my perspective, okay. I think he's due for a contract in this off season. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I feel like they kind of expected him to be that guy on the power play one, and it hasn't really worked out that way. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that's happening on the blue line that he, in the last couple of games, like he really hasn't like ascended to that role. So I'm not sure. There's just a lot of problems like on our end.
And it's hard to pinpoint, right? Because it could just be the system that it's not working for him as a player, whatever he's used to. It could be that he's just not a good fit, you know, or he's just struggling because it's a new place. He's, you know, whatever it is.
Well, and he was having a hard time, you know, so last summer he was a restricted free agent. So the Wild, you know, gave like an offer, and he just didn't take it all summer. Like he just didn't sign a contract all summer, but he stayed in Minnesota. He did not go back to Canada because he was trying to show that, you know, like I am dedicated. But at the same time, everyone was like, "What? Then why won't you sign? Like you don't have other options. You know, like the Wild want to sign you. You cannot just go somewhere else because you're restricted." And obviously he did finally sign, but I think that was the start of, you know, kind of a bad taste in people's mouths. And then when he came in and he hadn't really improved his defensive game, because he's a very offensive defenseman. And that was kind of the problem. So we were all really bummed to see him go, though. Again, the vibes. He has had like 7 different hairstyles, and they are all weird. Like, I don't know if you've seen his hairstyles through the years, but they're very entertaining.
He goes through phases.
Yeah. He had like long curly hair at one point, like shoulder length curly hair. And then it was like buzz cut, and it's been mullet, and it's been everything. But so in that sense, we were really bummed to lose him.
For his hair.
Yeah.
For the important things.
And because he's been here for so long. He was here for like 3 seasons, I want to say. Well, here / Iowa. I count them together.
So do you run your podcast just by yourself, or do you have?
Oh, wait! I want to ask one more wild question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I take it back.
Okay, last wild question.
Okay.
I wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, so this happened like the same season, I believe, when you guys shipped off Kakinen to us, and then Marc-Andre Fleury came in, and like Talbot had just signed a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
And that off season, well, okay, before the off season, you guys' first round, they went with Fleury. And then you guys got knocked out in the first round. And then the off season happened where they wanted to sign Fleury. Like, what was that experience? Like, the fact that Talbot ended up leaving, I felt like, wow, that's a bit unexpected.
That was incredibly unexpected. Because even a few days before that happened, Bill Guerin was still saying like, no, like, you know, Talbot's going to stay here. We're going to have this tandem of Talbot and Fleury. And I think it just got to the point where Talbot was basically like, I don't want to be here because you did not trust the playoff series with me, because they played Fleury. I think it was a 7-game series, and they played Fleury the first 6 games. So then finally in that last game, they basically threw Talbot in and was like, okay, save the series for us. And so I've never really been a huge Talbot fan anyway, but he's a really good player. You know, he can be a really great goalie. And so that change was really, and especially because getting Gustafsson in return, it was like, you look at his record, and of course, he was with the Senators. They were not playing super great in front of him, but he still had this terrible record. He was like completely unknown to most of us. And, there wasn't much to learn because he just hadn't really spent much time in the NHL. And that honestly was the best trade that Guerin could have ever made, because Gustafsson came here and he even had an interview once where he said, "I'm just glad I found somewhere where people believe in me." Aww. So he obviously was not getting the support that he needed to, make those steps as a goalie prospect. Because here, and I know he hasn't been great lately. He's been on and off this year. But when he is on, and he is Vezina level with all of his stats. And again, the team in front of him right now is kind of part of the problem, because he is still playing pretty well. So, and I know, I guess last night he was not his best night. But there has also been like a sickness running through the locker room, so I don't really blame him on that one. But again, and no one could have seen that happening. It's not like Guerin had a crystal ball and was like, "Wow, Gus Bus is really going to like be on fire if I bring him here." But Bill Guerin, I have complicated thoughts on the man, but I feel like in general, his view of the team, I like that he makes a decision and he goes for it. He doesn't hem and haw. He's just like, "All right, you don't want to be here? Cool. Well, I heard about this other goalie. You're going to go to the Senators." Like he did not hem and haw.
What a cool move for Gus to come in and be able to share the net with somebody like Marc-Andre. I mean, like, yes. I love Flower. I was like, whenever he finally made his way to Minnesota, I'm like, yes, he's out of that purgatory in Chicago. Yeah. Like he's in a good organization. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what a great, especially like you were saying, Gustafsson coming over from the Senators where they were struggling, they weren't playing the best, and just being able to be alongside another goalie of Flowers' caliber and be able to have like his skill set to rely on, I think gives him a little bit of insurance. But what a great mentor too for somebody coming out of a bad sort of situation and having, Hall of Fame Marc-Andre Fleury to rely on as somebody, as an extra mentor and an extra coach. Mm-hmm. I was surprised at the move when they brought in Gustafsson, but it's paid off fantastically. Yeah. You have, two goalies that can come in, and especially when the team's firing, you have that security in net, I feel like, with those two guys.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because Fleury coming in, he has that old style of goaltending. And for the first couple of games where he played in front of the Wild, it made fans nervous. And me too, because we're so used to like the very calm, like you pick your spot and you just position yourself well. And then he's over here just like legs and arms are flying everywhere. And people are like, watching, it's like, oh my God. But we've gotten used to it now. And he's been so great as a mentor for Gustafsson and for our goalie prospect in Iowa, Jesper Wallstedt. Wallsted's been up a couple times, mostly on the bench, but just having Fleury be there in the locker room and be able to, say, "Oh, hey, I saw you do this, like maybe try it this way." Or, even outside of the rink, Wallstedt kind of saw how Fleury takes care of himself when they're on the trip to Sweden. Like, how much does he rest? What does he eat? What does he, all of that. And that Wallstedt was saying that was actually really helpful to see, like, okay, when you go up a level, you really have to buckle down and do all of these things. So it's been great. And I don't know where he's going to go after this year because he is not done. He's not done. But we have Wallstedt waiting. So Minnesota's kind of, has their hands tied behind their back.
For sure.
Speaking of Wallstedt, how are you guys liking him? Because I don't know how much. Did you watch the draft that you guys drafted him in?
I don't think I watched that. That was 2020. I don't think I actually watched the draft.
So, because it was rumored that the Sharks were actually looking to draft him, like they were all in on drafting Wallstedt until William Eklund dropped to 7th, so they ended up taking him instead. And we were so excited because we really, really need a really good goalie prospect. But then when they chose Eklund, we were like, well, we also really need a goal scorer or someone who
we need a lot of things.
So we're like, I guess we'll take, this is exciting for us. But I've always been kind of curious what it would have been like if the Sharks took Wallstedt. What's he been like over there?
He's absolutely incredible. It took him a little while when he came over last year. So this is his second year in America. It took him a little while to get used to American rinks because, they're different size than Swedish and European in general rinks. So he had to get used to kind of the different angles and the different, just everything. And once he did that, he has been amazing. He was named to the AHL All-Star team for the second time this year. In November, he was like the AHL Player of the Week twice. He's had a couple shutouts. I mean, he is incredible to watch. And he's also, again, everyone loves him for the vibes. Like, he started to come out of his shell a little bit now that he's been here for a little while. And he is hilarious. And he likes to have fun on the ice. Like, he loves to be there. They showed him at the All-Star game for AHL. They were doing the wave. And when it came to him, he joined in and he dances on the ice if he likes the song. And I mean, he's just so much fun on and off the ice. So we are really loving him and people cannot wait to see him up here full time.
Oh,
exciting stuff for the Wild.
But we're happy with Eklund.
Yeah.
So back
now
to
you
my previous question that I wanted to ask. I just wanted to know if this is kind of like the gist of what people can expect if they tune into your podcast, or are you a little bit more? Well, you did say you don't really care too much for the analytics and things, but do you still incorporate that into yours?
So my podcast, basically, I write a big notes of anything I want to talk about, and then I hit record, and then I just go to the end. I don't edit it at all. And I know that's
unhinged.
Basically, it's my idea is I am having a conversation with you. I can't hear your end, but here's my end of it. I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I'm gonna, maybe make a mistake on something. But I feel like I hope it comes across as relatable, and not just wow, that lady has no idea how to edit stuff. And I don't know, people seem to like it. I just say whatever I feel like, and then at the end, I upload.
I'm a listener of Her Wild Side podcast, mainly because you were sending me all of the Beyond Our Ice clips on Twitter, and so I got into it, and I was like, now I'm gonna go check out Mickey's podcast and see what I can learn about the team, and I love it. I think some of your commentary is hilarious, and I think it adds to the vibes of the Wild, just kind of the overarching vibes around the team. I love it. If it's just unhinged Wild ranting, you're doing a great job.
Someone this week called me the hockey beat reporter for off ice reporting, and I was like, that is exactly what I am.
Nice.
I will accept
that. Should be your description for your podcast when people look it up.
I think I will add it because I was like, that. Yes. Okay. But I want to show that hockey is for everyone, also in a way that you don't have to go look up the stats to, you don't have to know how to structure a power play or a penalty kill. You don't have to know all of that stuff. It's okay to just like hockey because you like to watch it, or because you came across it on Twitter or Tumblr and people were guys were cute or they were funny, or you're like, this is so strange, what's happening? You can like hockey because of that. That's a great entrance into hockey. However you get to hockey, you should be able to enjoy it.
For sure. I think
no
matter how you discover the sport, like you said, even if it's just because there was a player that caught your fancy or a joke or a meme or something, I feel like it's that black hole. It takes that one thing and it's a slippery slope and you're here for life.
And I mean, I always say hockey is, once people can actually get a really good, hockey's so beautiful. And that sounds silly, but if you think about all of the different elements, they are on skates. They have to use a stick. The puck is small. The net is small, especially with bigger goalies. They've got, it's physical, but also you have to have skills out there. You can't just bang people on the boards, you also have to be able to shoot the puck. And I mean, it's all of these elements together that I feel like makes it this really beautiful thing to watch. And sometimes, there's beautiful plays and there's, I don't know. For me, it's always been the beauty of the game. And I think because I associate it also with like my family, so it's been like a big bonding thing. And so I just think it can be so wonderful for people to have hockey. And the 82 game season, your schedule's full. You know what you're doing. Every other night you're watching a game. So it's really nice to like just dive into it.
For sure.
Love that.
More unhinged.
I do like that there's folks like yourself, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is kind of the sort of direction that we go with this podcast. Like, we're not going to sit down and like analyze a play and, bring up stats and like all that stuff. Like, if it comes up because we're just are interested to mention that sort of stuff, then, that's what happens. But if you're looking for a podcast that's going to give you those insights, like, you do you. But I love that there is this variety. And also, one of the biggest reasons why we started this podcast is for representation as well. And, there's stuff that I came across this past week that just made me go, cis white hockey men, please shut up. Like, stop. But, they've got these big platforms and it's just, it just makes me thankful when I see other folks who are like, I want to create a podcast. And it's like, you don't need all that sort of like experience. And it is a bit intimidating when you first start, but I love that there's this availability of it. And, if folks are interested in just finding someone that they can relate to, who's just watching the Wild games and just want to feel like I've got someone else who I can like, like who gets me on that level, it's like, there's that podcast for them. So that's really cool that you got this going.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Who put this other thing at the end? Who wants to talk about that?
Oh, we can skip it because we can go to the big thing, the big topic that because that's probably going to take a while.
The elephant in the room.
The big one. More like a mammoth.
Speaking of the beautiful game, here's the
not so beautiful game.
Here's the other parts.
So I just wanted to kind of do a quick summary of like what's been happening. So as we know, there was a report that came out from the Globe and Mail that on January 24th, 5 players from the 2018 team have... Oh, maybe I should start this section off by we're going to be talking about sexual assault. So if this is something that's triggering for you, we'll put down in the description of where you can skip to in the episode. But from here until that time tag, we're going to be talking about that sort of all those topics. So on January 24th, 5 players from the 2018 team have been told to surrender to face charges for sexual assault. The London police followed that up later in the day by stating that a press conference is expected to be held on Monday, February the 5th, to share further details of the investigation of that incident. The police investigators in London, Ontario said in December of 2022 that they had, quote, reasonable grounds, end quote, to believe that 5 members of the 2018 Canada World Juniors hockey team sexually assaulted a woman. The sexual assault allegations initially were investigated by London police in 2018. However, the case was closed in February 2019 without any charges, and then the investigation was reopened in 2022. So what are the sexual assault allegations against Hockey Canada? Well, in April of 2022, a woman filed a lawsuit against Hockey Canada, the Canadian Hockey League, and 8 unnamed CHL players, stating that she was sexually assaulted in a London, Ontario hotel room in June of 2018 following a Hockey Canada event. So I did want to mention that since the case has been reopened and London police have required those 5 players to surrender themselves, Dylan Dubé has since stepped away from the Flames on January the 21st due to, quote, mental health, end quote. And Carter Hart was granted a leave of absence from the Flyers on January 23rd. In addition, Alex Formenton was granted a leave of absence on January 24th by his Swiss League team and expected to return to Canada, which we saw this morning that he has officially surrendered himself to the police. And then that same day, he took leave. Michael McLeod and Cal Foote both were given indefinite leaves of absence from the Devils. So prior to this, when it was first investigated, there were numerous statements that were put out by all the players that, and it was an involuntary requirement for players to surrender, to cooperate with the police investigators. Victor Mente and Jordan Kyrou confirmed that they did not attend the gala and were not in London at the time of investigation. And then the following players have come out either via personal statement or with their agency to say that they were not involved with the allegations. That includes Jake Bean, Cal Clegg, Max Comtois, Dylan Dubé, Dante Favros, Cal Foote, Jonas Gadjevich, Carter Hart, Brett Howden, Cale Makar, Colton Point, Taylor Radish, Sam Steele, Tyler Steenbergen, Robert Thomas, and Connor Timmins. The following players that stated that they have fully cooperated with the investigation but declined to comment further were Boris Katchuk, Drake Batherson, and Michael McLeod. And then Alex Formenton, up until this morning, was the lone player that had not made any comment to date. So what were the results of the initial investigation? Well, according to Hockey Canada, players were, quote, strongly encouraged, end quote, to participate in this third-party investigation, but it was not mandatory. And then none of the allegations that had been proven, none of the allegations had been proven in the court of law. So
do we want to
finally,
do we want to talk about the Alex Formenton comments from this morning?
So I do want to end with why they reopened the investigation.
Oh, yes.
So
okay.
Why did Hockey Canada reopen the investigation into sexual assault allegations? After the initial closing of the investigation, Hockey Canada began to receive backlash from Canada's political figures and sponsors, in addition to the fans of the sport. The Canadian Minister of Sport basically announced that the federal funding of the organization was to be frozen until the organization signed on with the Office of Sport Integrity Commissioner and provided detailed plans on impending change to prohibit actions like those that allegedly happened in 2018 from occurring again. And then several corporate sponsors like Tim Hortons and, Scotiabank paused their sponsorships that were planned out for the World Juniors until change occurred within the organization. And then as a result, Hockey Canada did sign on with that Office of Sports Integrity Commissioner and reopen the investigation in July. So that brings us to today, where the 5 players have now been summoned to surrender themselves.
Who wants to go first?
I had to take a big inhale, with the Dylan Dubé thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's incredibly convenient that Alex Formenton was one of these players that his name came out when they were talking about, these 4 guys took leaves. This guy's coming back from he was in Switzerland, right? And then all of a sudden we hear today he showed up to London police and he maintains his innocence. Okay, well, if that's the trend, then I think most of us had it right when we were saying that these are going to be the 5 guys that London police is arraigning.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck to the Calgary Flames for whatever happens from them putting out the statement that Dylan Dubé left because of mental health reasons.
Mental health.
Yeah. because you did something terribly wrong, and that's now suddenly weighed on your conscience now that it's come to, yeah,
It,
yeah.
there were so many ways that they could have phrased it, and that's what they went with. Like, and I mean, they know what's happening. It's not like they're in the dark and he's like, oh, it's my mental health. Haha, just kidding. You know, it's like they know what's going on.
It makes me wonder how much the teams like really knew, because like we were talking, I think Drew brought it up about the Cody or the Michael McLeod, like them not, the Devils not really wanting to sign him, and then they bring him in and it's just a 1-year deal. So it's kind of like, I mean, I think that it's not just going to be the league and Hockey Canada that has a lot to say. I think these teams are going to need to, there's going to be a lot of transparency out of this, because like when did you guys know? What did you know? What was the process into maybe signing this guy that had a hand in something just incredibly grotesque and traumatizing and problematic? I mean, this is obviously with the stuff that the Blackhawks have gotten into, this is a huge issue in hockey culture. And yeah, I just good luck to those teams, especially the Flames, because I think the way the Flames worded that, oh, mental health, he's leaving for mental health reason, it's like, okay, all right, and maybe he is, but what is the mental health is his guilty conscience now all of a sudden? And it's like Formanton didn't want, only guy that didn't release a statement, now he shows up to the London police this morning and he's like, I maintain my innocence. Well, you know, make sure you view all the evidence first.
He would be somewhere if he was good enough to make that team. And the fact that he, you know, jetted straight across the pond, that is saying something.
Yeah. So I mean, because just recently the Canucks had this whole thing with Jake Virtanen, right? And like, where did he go? And we all made the joke, the Canucks fans all made the joke, oh, well, you know, good luck in the KHL. And then just as soon as Virtanen was brought to a court of justice, yeah, he's being flown in from Russia, because well, you can't, I mean, good luck trying to get away from all that messed up shit that you did, you know? Like I caught on to that, Mickey, like, oh, he went and jet set it across overseas, which makes me wonder how much Formanton may have had an impact, really, and maybe being one of the sole people that added to the issue. You know what I'm saying? Because it seems really convenient that he was like, all right, Blues can do, we can too. Like, after, like you said, playing for Hockey Canada, where he garners a lot of attention for himself.
I don't know if you guys read the statement, or I guess the events that occurred that night from the witness, where it said that they went after 2 women that night, and the first one got away, and the one who brought up these allegations for legal purposes, I will say, and who actually suffered all of this trauma, was tricked into it. And so it kind of makes you wonder which of the dudes is the one that she went to the hotel room with first.
That's why my, you know, not to point blame, you know, before we hear all of the facts and know just exactly who did what, but it is really convenient that one of these guys immediately got gone, and then just conveniently is the first one that flies back and turns themselves in. But then he's like, you know, he's the only dude that didn't release a statement. Now he's like, I'm going to maintain my innocence. And it's like, okay, sure, bud. You know, like the stuff in that victim's testimony and the stuff that came out of what she experienced is horrific. And to know that these guys, I mean, like Carter Hart, who's been touted as like some goalie Christ-like figure in Philly. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are guys that have gone and had pretty solid careers with pretty reputable organizations. And Hockey Canada, and makes you wonder how much like the league has gone out of their way to bury this and make it go away. Like, one of the things that immediately stuck out to me was when the London police is like, we're going to have a press conference on Monday, February 5th.
Gotta get that skills comp in first.
Right? Like, super convenient. Let's not let this really bad thing where some of our superstars did awful things overshadow this big celebration of the league. So we'll just get all that over with, and then we'll talk about it. Like, Really?
Then we'll address the elephant in the room.
Right.
Well, and
hey,
like, I'm hoping that they will come out with like the phone logs and stuff, because from everything I have read, even though not everybody was there in person or participated, they talked about it on the team group chat and everybody was aware. So that at that point, we need to look at everybody else on the team and say, what was your problem that you didn't do anything about this? Because there are several other high profile players who did nothing and have just gone on, okay, I'm just going to go play for the Avalanche and, have this wonderful career. Like, I hope this never comes out. Hope they don't see my text messages. Because that's disgusting. Those 5 need to be held accountable, but everybody else needs to also.
Yes. Jay and I have kind of touched on this subject before, specifically regarding everything that happened with Chicago, right? And, what happened back in 2014. I forget what year it was. Where
2010.
It is 2010. Thank you. It is like we can sit here and be like, yes, they did something wrong, and they should be held accountable. There's no doubt about that. But there's something within hockey culture where these dudes are brought up thinking this way, so they don't know any better. So you kind of have to think like, how do you hold them accountable for something that they were taught to do? It's not completely their faults growing up in this environment.
And to back that up, Nessa, what you're saying, I don't know how many of you guys have heard about it, but it came back into the news cycle when the Chicago news first broke. I stumbled upon it by accident a few years ago when I first started watching junior hockey, but there is this thing called the Junior Hockey Bible, and the contents of which are very concerning and embed this kind of stuff into, most notably, junior hockey culture. And it's like that way of like where these young guys, right? These are, junior hockey, pretty much kids, have glorified this sort of conduct and have wove it into the fabric of like, yeah, that's just what we do as junior hockey players on the road with no parents and minimal oversight. And it's this really grotesque sort of like vein of disgusting that's running through the sport culture. And I think it goes back to that hockey is for everyone sort of thing, but like we're not addressing the parts of the culture that have clearly been embedded in some time in these young players' minds that carries over through, international competition and NHL level competition and that sort of thing. Like, you have to address these root causes of it and put your foot down and stamp that out of the culture. And I seen that Junior Hockey Bible thing get more attention back when the Chicago Blackhawks came up. And then because it's been such of one of those, like, this is this very quiet, secretive thing that junior hockey culture doesn't want to get out into the world, all of that was covered up and it was hushed again. And it's like, no, these are the kinds of things, especially I think in the hockey community, if we know that they exist and we know that this is the kind of stuff that 16, 17-year-old kids are being told, like, you're going to have to do this if you want to fit in, if you're going to have to go through these sort of hazing rituals, if you want to be accepted by your teammates. We have to call that out, I think, as a widespread hockey community and say, like, this is a large portion of what is making this kind of conduct okay. And I think that's where it really is up to us that are, those of us have common enough sense to be, completely, like, over the situation to call it out and say, like, this is the problem. This is what leads to this kind of stuff being glorified in some way or another in hockey culture, and it absolutely needs to end. Like, just because you are a 60-year-old goal scorer at 17 years old in junior hockey, it doesn't give you the right to go through life and do whatever you want to do and create victims because of your own inability to just be humane. I was kind of really disappointed that there wasn't more, I think, news and media surrounding that when it resurfaced, because it really does show that, like, this is a part of the culture that the young guys and athletes in the sport are learning it's okay because it's glorified. It earns you like some sort of team cred.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, it is. It's disgusting. It's like if hockey is going to be for everyone, these are absolutely the kinds of things that need to be stamped out of the culture that surrounds the players and the teams at every level.
Yeah, that's so I have a 6-year-old who this is his second year of hockey. So like when I'm hearing these things and this or just any kind of misconduct in the hockey world, I always think about how I need to play a role in making sure that that is not happening on any team that he is going to be on. He says he wants to play forever. And hopefully he will. But I was having this discussion with someone else, but it was on the topic of parents like verbally abusing refs or coaches or, and stamping that out. And I have kind of, he's a mini-mite, so it's not like that's really happening right now. But I have kind of made this promise to myself that if there are things happening like that, I'm going to do something about it, and because I feel like sometimes if one person decides to stand up, more people will back you.
Yeah.
So in any kinds of these things, or like locker room stuff, I don't know, maybe I'll decide to coach or something just so I can be like a tangent to that. And if I hear that stuff going on, that's not okay. Because I will do that, anywhere. If I am around kids, if I hear them saying something that's not okay, I will tell them that. That's not okay to say. We don't talk like that. And for the most part, kids will listen.
Yeah.
And we need to get them when they're at that young age so that once they are older, if they are hearing it, they will be the ones to say, that's not okay. I don't like hearing you say that. Like just something to be the one to stand up. So,
yeah.
It's hard though. Like how do you do that everywhere?
Right. Right. And like you said, if there's the one person that doesn't have the courage to step up and say something, or, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose my place of position, or, X, Y, and Z, listen, at the end of the day, like you stepping up and saying something is maybe the thing that ends more victims from experiencing what's already maybe occurred or close to occurring. Like it absolutely takes that vote, that vouch of confidence. And like you said, when there's one person that's willing to push back, a lot of times there's going to be, when somebody sees, okay, like this person has said something, there's a lot of times other people that are like, you know what, I see it and I'm going to speak up too. And there's strength in numbers. And I feel like it takes those outspoken individuals to step up and fight and put their foot down and say, like, this is the problem with hockey culture. And it starts with us. It starts with us being more active in our kids' locker rooms and more active in their practice sessions, and, being active with the refs and the team, and just overall playing that role of engagement to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't keep polluting the spaces that should be safe, fun spaces for everybody that loves the sport to be a part of.
Absolutely. And I think as fans, we can also do that in a way, because we are on social media. When kind of some of these bad things come out, there's always a couple of people that are going to be like, it's not a big deal. Oh, I'm sad that goalie left. Like, that was our goalie. But they are overwhelmingly pushed back on by fans who are, no, that's not okay. And if people can keep doing that both on and off of the internet and social media, I think that's going to help. Because again, it's been 5 years since this happened, and they are just finally now. It's because fans and other people wouldn't forget, and they kept saying, we need to do something about this. And the pressure is what gets to them. And so again, it's like we can play our part where we're at, even if it is just, going on Twitter and, making sure that you also say, like, this is not okay. So anybody,
Yeah, speaking of the pushback, like the one thing that I really loved was like when this news comes out and then like 30 it was I think Frank Saravalli had it down to like the minute, it was like 37 minutes later, they were like, "We're expanding to Salt Lake City." And every fan was like, "Nice try. Nice try. This is how you're trying to push it under the rug, and we're not going to let it happen." And I love that widespread pushback from the hockey community. Like, you're not going to keep these aren't things that we're going to let be buried. We want attention brought to these bad parts of the culture. We want this part of the culture removed from the game. And we're tired of you guys like sliding it in the midnight hour like a thief in the night and then trying to pull our wool over our eyes. Like, nobody cares about a 33rd team when there's 5, maybe even potentially more as this thing starts to come out. Superstars, big name guys that have been basically getting away with some of the most egregious things. We're not going to let you bury it anymore. And I absolutely loved like the widespread hockey community's reaction to the Hockey Canada news trying to be buried by the league, because everybody was like, no more.
Question. Do you think it would have still been the same reaction from everyone had it been a star player?
I think it would maybe be more people trying to stick up for them, but I still think there would be a large contingent that would say still that it's not okay. I don't care if it's Sidney Crosby. I don't care if it's, Connor McDavid. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how big their name is and how big of an impact they make on their team. It's still not okay. And they need to be out. I think of other sports where these kinds of things can happen too. And it's kind of like, well, how do they deal with them? Because there's kind of just a general sports culture. But there, I know there are, football players that are, have these things happen. And there are a large contingent of people being like, I don't want him on my team. Like, get him off of here. So I would certainly hope that there would be a large outpouring of no, we are not okay with this. I don't care that he's a superstar.
I hate to say it, but I feel like if Cale Makar or somebody like that would have been named in this, I mean, one of the things that was really, 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 to be quite frank, pissing me off was seeing all these names out there and then people making the jokes about, oh, this GM just signed, Dubé, Formanton, and all these guys at league minimum. I think you would have seen more stuff like that too. And it's like already, it's like, that's not funny. It's not funny. It's not cute. These guys did something serious. Stop glorifying them and giving, any sort of, I think, not necessarily positivity, but any sort of like build up, making those kind of jokes. Like, what, you're joking about signing potentially 5 very gruesome sexual assault offenders. It's not funny. It's not funny. And I feel like you said, it'd probably be equal enough pushback, Mickey. I feel like hopefully the ones of us that have a big enough platform, especially if it would have been like a Cale Makar, we would have really, really pushed back. But I think there would have been a lot more, I think, some of that grotesque stuff, that that trolling that happens in the way that it does. People trying to garner that engagement by just enraging people.
Well, and that's why like I said, the text message, the phone logs, if they have those things and they come out, that, if it was a star player, then you can point to that. Okay, well, so you think this is okay just because he plays great hockey? It's not. It's not okay for anybody.
If we don't allow it in society at large, we shouldn't allow it in our sport.
Preach.
Yeah, I think, all of this, comes back to the whole hockey culture stuff that you guys, made really great points about. And one of the things that I did come across in my my comment earlier about goddamn cishet white men on the podcast, because John Scott on his podcast had, like, I don't know if he had put out a clip on socials or people had listened to it and went, what the hell, when he was commenting on the Corey Perry situation. And sounds like he knows a bit more than what's being put out in the media. And from what I gather, the victim also didn't want any of this other stuff to be brought forward for, her own, mental health and not wanting to be discovered of for her identity, but he did make his own feelings known about it and being like, oh, well, if he had just like gave her a pass or something, or, you know, basically like sexually like harassed her, it's like basically no big deal or whatever. And I think most recently he got brought on to the Chicago broadcast, and within like the hours leading up to that kind of being brought out into light, he put out a statement and all this business and whatever. So it just all kind of ties back into a lot of the things that like we've been talking about. And I will say that I did like the backlash that Hockey Canada did receive from all of this, with all the sponsors like saying, and big name sponsors, they're like, no, this is embarrassing. We don't want to have we don't want this happening in the future. Do something about it, and do something about it in a big way. What was it, like sometime last year they did like this summit thing, which after the initial one I haven't seen anything further about it, and we talked about it when it did happen, where we kind of looked over like, well, what do they have planned? And it seems like, okay, nice first mini step, but these one little 2-hour things in like a hotel room for a couple hours is not going to miraculously change this thing that is like deeply in the roots of this sport. Like, it's gonna take a huge overhaul, and you know, we're kind of gonna see a lot of stuff probably coming out with as these players report to the police and how that's all going to come about. But, you know, it's like you guys mentioning the fact that even if these other players weren't directly involved, there's possibilities in all that conversation that you were complicit in it happening. And while I don't want to diminish their responsibility, as we mentioned early on, as we started talking about this topic, because of all this outside influence that's directly involved in the sport, you quote unquote, you groom these hockey players to feel like this is okay. And when you're like young and you're still developing, like, you know, we all have similar unrelated experiences to how we had something happen in our childhood, and now we're slowly like, you know, reforming how we approach things, because we realize, yeah, that's not a good way of thinking and doing something. But when you're young and you're looking up to these people who are your mentors and they're telling you it's okay, and then your teammates are doing it and you just want to fit in, it gets really messy. And so I don't know if we're going to see the changes that we really want to see within the sport that we love so much in like the next 5 years. But I think just the fact that we're here at this moment, that these players have had to leave their teams, and the NHL and the teams, and in general, I also wanted to mention that like when those 5 players were taking leaves of absence, and there were like little pockets that I saw within the Twitter space where people were telling people, hey, by the way, this isn't a flex. If that player wasn't on your team, that makes your team no better than the team that this player is coming from. And so don't use this opportunity to like, whatever rivalry you have with the other team, like, don't joke about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not funny. It's not funny.
I will say, we hear it all the time in the news. I think of various subjects of a time of reckoning, you know, X, Y, and Z, a time of reckoning for this. I think that this is hockey's reckoning, and I don't feel like any part of the hockey community that's pissed off about it should be quiet and should back off of this. I think that we should keep driving that's the topic home, that we want change in this sport. This isn't the kind of sport that we want to let the future generations. I know there's a lot of talk about, is hockey dying out in Canada, or is you know, like there's a fall off of enrollment of kids playing. Well, yeah, parents don't want their kids, you know, parents that care are engaged. They don't want their kids playing where they're at risk for so much more than just like a broken leg or something on the ice, right? Like, I I think that we're at a big moment, and I don't think anybody should relent off of this at all. I mean, because like a lot of parents, especially with Hockey Canada, being exposed for using like the fine, like the fees that get registered for kids to play, and they were using that for a sexual assault fund, for sexual assault defense funds, and you've got parents that are completely pissed off. Like that's not they're they want their kids to play a game that is a staple, especially in Canadian, lore, right? Like this is their sport, and now you've tarnished it with all of this just unnecessary stuff that really nobody should be covering up. Nobody should be standing by. And honestly, the way I feel about it is, if you're kind of like the Kyle Beach situation, if you were on that team and you knew something and you didn't speak up and you did nothing about it, you were just as complicit. Just as complicit. You had a voice to make a difference. You had a voice to help that victim out, that girl out, and you did nothing. And yeah, you know what? Maybe Dylan Dubé does take time away for his mental health. Well, you know what? It wouldn't be weighing on your conscience now if he's done the right thing 6-7 years ago.
Yep. I do feel like things in the NHL and in hockey in general will change. I think the hard part is that things change so slowly in hockey, because at the highest levels, we have, cishet white men of a generation two back, and they do things how they do things, it kind of like the idea of saying that people couldn't use pride tape, because they're like, oh, this will solve it, we'll just not use it. And it's like, no, that might, sure, that might have been okay, even just 20 years ago, maybe not as much pushback, but today everyone's like, why? Like now people are pushing back, and people are telling all of these guys at the higher levels, like, we don't like how you're doing this. And, they have to listen at some point. It just, we have to keep going, even if it's slow.
It's kind of one of those things, right? Like hockey, especially at those upper tiers where we really need the change, we really need the progress. It's still the old white boys club. And now there's a whole new contingent of hockey fans that are saying, like, we don't want no part of the culture that the old white boys club has glorified for so long. Our voices belong at the table. We need a seat at the table, and we want to see the game change, and we're ready for that, and it's long overdue. So that's why I said I think it's important that all of us that know that this is wrong, that know that this kind of stuff needs to be gone from the sport, I don't think that this is the time for any of us to back down from it. Keep applying that pressure, because it is time that the sport changes, and it's a reflection. It becomes more of a reflection of the people that really do love, like you said, Mickey, it's the most beautiful sport on the planet. And this kind of stuff, it does a lot to leave a bad taste in people's mouth.
Okay, so I do want to kind of wind down from this topic, but if there's anything, final thoughts, and you want to put out into the world. No? Yes? No?
Do better.
Yeah. Fair.
Fix yourselves.
Okay. And with that, let's wind down with something more uplifting and fun. Take it away, Drew.
Oh, yes, yeah. So, the chrome domes, first of all, I've seen a whole bunch of people on Twitter, they're like, they're not chrome, they're metallic. Listen, they're both shiny. They're both shiny, okay? I go onto Need for Speed and I paint a car blue. It could be metallic blue or it could be chrome blue. It's still the same shade of blue. Spare me the semantics. The chrome domes, almost were cursed, okay? Pius Suter came back, got the hat trick in the third period. We went to overtime and we lost because there's, Petey gets cross-checked right in front of, I think, Hoffer. It wasn't Bennington, so I can't chirp him today. But the chrome domes, guys, I like the chrome domes. I approached it with an open mind, like Jay, like you and I were talking about. I didn't know how I would receive them. But the truth of the matter is that it's only really when the camera angle zooms in all the way that you can tell that they're shiny. I enjoy the chrome domes. And I still stand by the fact that I think teal chrome would look pretty cool with the Sharks, especially not saying the blue chrome on ice.
I don't mind you guys' blue chrome domes. I am fine with them. I still hate the Vegas ones, the Kings ones, please throw them into the ocean. Or maybe not, because then you're polluting. Can you just like chuck it into the universe? But the blue Canucks Chrome Domes do not make me want the Sharks to do a teal one.
Oh.
They just don't. I'm fine with you guys', but I don't wish them upon the Sharks.
I will say they would have looked better with the away jerseys. I think with the blue jerseys, it all kind of flushed out some of the metallic. Maybe if they had
like you guys' matted ones.
Yes. Yeah, my mom made the comment. She's like, they need like chrome yellow or red helmets with the skate jerseys, and I'm like, no, we don't. Matte black's fine.
Give me some pink chrome, and then we're just go extreme with it. Then I would love it.
I always say that in general. My brother and I talk about this because, like I said, jersey collection. We wish that hockey would be more like baseball or basketball, where they have like 10 gazillion different jerseys and all sorts of different lines and I mean, it was so disappointing even to just have them taken out of warm-ups. To where it's just like, okay, we're just going to be as boring as possible. And I'm like, wait, you know what we can do? Chrome helmets. Let's give them that. Like, we'll give them chrome helmets, and then they'll stop wanting all the special jerseys.
That's my favorite thing I think about the blue chrome. Like, there's JT Miller was like, we wear what we're told to wear, and Tuckett's like, I'm not a designer. I have no comment about the helmets.
Okay, but speaking of designing,
ooh,
can we all appreciate what the Sharks are putting out right now?
Those are clean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys read the meaning behind the stripes and things and what they were actually trying to do, but if they had succeeded in what they wanted in the first place, like right now it's just like screen printed stripes on there, but they were looking at actually making it into a specific material, like textured, like a textile. So it could actually
like a twill.
I think so. Just so it could actually reflect the Hispanic heritage. Well, really, it's Mexican heritage that they're trying to base it off of. And I think that would have been super cool had they been able to do it. They said that it wouldn't work for endurance purposes. Like, it wouldn't have lasted. Honestly, I think it was just because of the money. Because, corporation capitalism.
Because it's fanatics.
I don't know.
One, can you imagine that? Can you imagine how they would mess that up? If you ordered one, can you just imagine what they would do
as you take them out?
Or it'd be like velvet or something.
Okay, but if you do... But if you look under the Sharks Pro shop, you can actually get the Adidas version, because that was one of the things that my friend that I was like texting about it. She was like, "Oh my God, yes, I want to buy one." And then then she remembered, "Oh crap, we're with Fanatics," and I was like, whatever. And then I ended up looking like the next day just for other merch related to it, and I told her, "Oh, you could get an Adidas version. It's like perfect."
The authentics, quote unquote.
I mean, you do have to pay like an extra something, but I think it's probably worth it.
I really like the design of the jersey, but I think they could have done a better job with the way the stripes. I don't know. Like, there's the big bold white stripe on the bottom. They could have had a better transition between that and the teal stripes under it, because right now it just seems, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Like, my eye is like,
you're missing some pizzazz.
What are you doing? It's like so in my face. Like, you could have done something there. But all in all, I like them.
How do you guys feel about the Stadium Series unis? I feel like every time we get a Stadium Series game, the unis are all like I get excited about seeing maybe just how bad they're gonna be. Honestly, at this point,
they're so boring.
It's such an interesting concept. Like, oh, we're gonna make it big so people can see it, and it's like, but I'm gonna be honest with like the Islanders and the New Jersey Devils unis. I got like big street sign vibes.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to keep me out of a construction zone.
I kind of like the Rangers one, because it is what it is.
I thought the Flyers was okay, but the Isles,
it's just so
yeah,
bland.
like if you are there in a stadium, I don't think you need to be able to read Isles to know who you're cheering for. Like, don't you know which one you're cheering for?
Right. It was like when LA ran the ones with like the big LA on the front, and it's like, yeah, with the chrome buckets and all that, we know you're LA.
Okay, I do
like you have to do something. Yeah,
I do like the Islanders colors. Like the blue and the orange. Although it's similar to the Oilers, what they were trying to do a couple years back, last year, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I did see someone mentioning that they basically like copied the homework of like the Predators one that says Smashville.
I like when they step outside of the box. I think of I don't know if you guys know the Wild jersey that they wore for the Winter Classic, but it was really different. It says like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then had like Minnesota in the middle. And I mean, it was something where like you could tell they were the Wild, but it was nothing like their other jerseys. Mm-hmm. And so I wish people would do, and I'm like the Smashville, like, okay. But at least they tried to do something different, you know, like something. Again, I want them to step outside of the box and like just really go for it.
Yeah.
Jay, I seen you shared a thing that was like with the Rangers stadiums. I think it was you, the Stadium Series jersey, but with the Lady Liberty logo. And I thought that was clean. Like that's one of those weird, like kind of alternate third logos that I really, really enjoy. I think if they would have maybe switched from, I like the Stadium Series. Like to me, I think that was the best looking one was the Rangers. But I really like the way that mock-up looked with that Lady Liberty like crest on there. I thought that was really clean.
Yeah, I personally like the New York Rangers one, but I did like the concept that was put in for the Lady Liberty because I did like that one from last year as well. I guess in general with all four of them, like they're fine.
Nothing special.
But there's nothing
they're just so
that's
bland.
particularly wowing.
I like them better than the All-Star ones. I will say that. I'm sure you've talked about the All-Star ones, but
we should have had you on last week.
It's like, oh, Justin Bieber designed these? Okay, I understand now.
That's really the part that's going to sell that whole like event.
Yeah.
I feel like those jerseys are like on like a clearance rack at Rue 21 somewhere. They bought like a bunch of blank jerseys and let Justin Bieber take like paint pens to them.
I was telling Jay that for some reason those jerseys just remind me of Super Smash Bros. Or it's just like Super Mario, like the colors and the stars.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I went from like some of the best All-Star jerseys last year. Like I loved the color scheme. That was like those were so nice. And then this year they dropped them, and I was like, is this a joke? Like these are it's a prank, right?
Who's punking me?
We got this idea from like a coloring book. He just brought some crayons out, filled in the lines.
I will
My
say,
kid made this.
At least they're trying something different, right?
That's true.
Like
I do like that they changed the format
with any of this. I was reading an article the Sharks put out about the Cali Finn jerseys. The name is so funny. Where God, I forgot his position. No, I forgot. Anyways, one of the office people. Jesus, I'm forgetting words. He was explaining that they want to try something new in the coming years where they're going to put out style jerseys. So not necessarily jerseys that are going to be worn on the ice, but something they'll make for the fans to wear that they can wear out on the street, in public, whatever. It's just like any old regular shirt, which I thought was an interesting concept because they have been putting a lot more time and effort into their merch this past couple years, which I've really appreciated because I've always been like, I love this team, but their merch sucks. And I have to find like 1 or 2 pieces a year of like a shirt or a hoodie that I really like. But now I look at all their stuff and I'm like, I need to decide which one of these I like the most if I want to buy it.
I would love to see teams like we were talking about earlier, like how there's the specialty jerseys and different lines and different themes of jerseys and like switching it up. Like as one of my favorite things about like the ECHL and the lower leagues, like junior hockey and even some of the AHL teams, are those specialty jerseys. Like the Icemen have done like Jimmy Neutron, they've done the Avengers. We were Groot just a few games ago. We all had like Groot setups. I love that. I think it's so fun. I think it's a great way for fans to get engaged. It's obviously a great money grab for the teams as well. So it, everybody gets to jump in. I wish more NHL teams were bold enough, or the league maybe, wondering how much they can dictate, but would let teams have more like liberty with that. Like maybe, obviously taking away Pride warm-up jerseys puts a pretty big, like, dampening in those plans, but it would be fun to see the NHL embrace that. Like if we're gonna do like a First Nations night or an Indigenous night, and they came out with like the San Jose Sharks, like those the Latino heritage jerseys that you guys have put out. Those have been so rad. Like give me a game of those. That's the kind of stuff I want to see.
You know why? It's because they hired local artists.
I love that.
They know the culture out here.
It's so awesome. I wish we could. Give me a Sharks Canucks showdown with like one of us is in like a Jimmy Neutron jersey and the other one's rocking Cat Dog.
Cat Dog.
How would you even make a Cat Dog jersey?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe like cat jersey and then dog breezers.
Yes.
Interesting.
They just put.
Really, we just need to own a team. All four of us.
Yes.
Somewhere we're gonna get money to own a team.
Just to design jerseys. That's all I want to do.
Don't need anybody to wear them. We just want to put the product out there.
Or imaginary
I would love if
team.
they would hire me. I'm not good at drawing or anything, but I would love if they hired me and then I could just sit down and I would describe it to them. I'd be like, look, this is what it looks like.
Let's get a collaboration going.
Me. I will okay it. And then you pay me money.
Let's get a collaboration going, guys. Jay,
just find somebody that can draw.
Jay and I, we did our own logo. So first time we collaborated on a thing, getting this podcast going, and every time a team puts out a new specialty jersey for whatever night, we're always like, do we like this one? And then we'll pick it apart about like which parts we really like, which parts don't work, and it's like I kind of wish we had the opportunity to work on our own, but like we ain't got time for it.
Speaking of another good specialty jersey that looked bomb was the Canucks Lunar New Year's last night.
Oh my god, so good.
That was
clean
so
logo.
The dragon around the skate. I'm like, I'll take 5 dozen. Thanks. Just send them. Just put them in my inbox. I'm out. Beautiful.
Golden dragon.
Yes,
so good,
man. And the Canucks genuinely, like, I know I'm biased, but I really think they do a great job with the specialty jerseys and bringing in the local artists, because
most of the time
the story behind that, like the Chinese dragon and its place, and then like the Asian culture in Vancouver, it's just seamless. It always translates really well, and it looks amazing on the ice.
So I don't know if you guys know, yesterday was Hockey Day Minnesota, which is basically like a holiday in Minnesota, and they like for real.
They like every day in Minnesota.
Yeah, kind of. But they do
So
like
it was Saturday.
But they do like 12 hours of coverage on Bally Sports of like every level and like local ranks all teams play. And but so one of the last games that they play before the Wild played was they always do a high school game. And last night it was Roseau and Warroad, who have been rivals for forever. They're up northern Minnesota. They've produced Brock Nelson is from there. TJ Oshie is from there. They've produced a bunch of NHLers, Olympics. Anyway, but they designed special jerseys for this Hockey Day Minnesota. And the one that Warroad wore, so originally the land that they were on was Ojibwe and Sioux, and right in between is where Warroad is now. And it was a space that they called in Ojibwe Warring Road. And so when white people moved in, they were like, you know what, we kind of like that. Let's keep it Warroad. But so what they did to like harken back, because there's been a big kerfuffle because they are a team that does use like an Indigenous person's head as a logo. But the local tribe, they actually had a big thing where they said, we will okay this if you honor us. If you respect us, you honor it, and you use it respectfully. And they have done that. And like every rink, every sports venue, they have a big thing talking about that. So what they did is they used the logo, and around it, though, they put War Road Warriors, but it was written in Ojibwe.
Oh,
and then one of I think the first Indigenous NHL player is from War Road, Henry Bucha. And they had it actually in the back of the jersey, which I thought was so cool, a picture of him from when he was in the NHL in the 70s. And I just thought that was so cool. Like such a cool way to honor him and just, the native roots of where they are at. And that I like, I had always been very like, oh, I don't like teams should not be using that logo. I don't like, but the fact that, you know what, they've hashed it out. They've come to this agreement where everyone likes it. Everyone is okay. They started the whole day off in War Road yesterday with a drum circle, which I thought like that was an amazing way to start it. And then, at the end, they're honoring Henry Bucha and the native communities around them. And so I just thought it was really cool and out of the box, especially to have like in the back of the jersey. I think that's really cool.
Take notes, Chicago.
God. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like when they put Bear's name in Cree on the back of his jersey. I wanted that jersey.
I wish I could have.
So cool.
Bid for that or something. Well, I forgot. Who does he play for now? He didn't come to the Sharks, so I don't pay attention anymore.
The Caps. Signed with Caps. Yep.
The Capitals. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Canucks missed out on him too.
I remember they said that if he ever gets sent down to their AHL team, it would be great because he would be playing for the Hershey Bears. Bear playing for the Bears.
There is a picture of his his kid that they had at the game, and he was up at the boards, and the jersey said Bear Cub. Oh, yeah, so I was like, oh my
god. Anyways,
so wholesome, so adorable.
I love it.
All right, so as we wind down on the episode, thank you so much, Mickey, for coming on today. Such a blast to hear your perspective as a hockey fan, specifically a Wild fan covering now the PWHL. So, and then you have your podcast, which sounds really cool and amazing. And for any of the viewers and listeners of this podcast, if you're interested in some of these great vibes that Mickey's brought to our podcast today, or you're just generally interested in the Wild, go check out her podcast, go check out her articles that she's writing for Inside the Rink, and in general, great conversations about all the other stuff that we talked about today. So any other closing thoughts from my fellow hosts before we punch in for the day?
I just wanted to point out that I really like Drew's attire today because I like the Ghost Pirates logo.
Thank you. I got this at the All-Star game a couple weeks back,
which we totally still need to talk about.
Oh,
on our future pod.
I have so
I have so many questions for you.
I have so many good stories. I have so many. It was in some ways, because life has been so wild. Everything that happens now feels so surreal a little bit. Right, so much wild on this podcast. But yeah, this was one of the things I picked up at the team store, and I also have, I don't know if you can see it, it's got this little cartoon ghost on my hoodie.
Yes, so cute.
The Ghost Pirates stuff, I mean, they're owned by the guy that owns Iceman owns the Ghost Pirates as well, so it kind of feels like I'm cheating on the Iceman a little bit, but I'm like, man, our merch does not look this good. It's just the only thing I wish about this hat, to be honest with you, is that the eyes glow in the dark. That's my only complaint. Mm-hmm. If they glue in the dark, this hat would be 100. Right now it's a 99.
All right. And with that, thank you so much for watching and listening to us. And as always, I'm your host, Jay.
I'm Drew, and thank you again, Mickey, for popping in and talking about some fun and important stuff with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Lots of wild things.
Hey, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.